Hello, YouTube and Facebook. So I wanted to get back on here after watching and reviewing my video and my shorts that StreamYard helped me get together. I had to reevaluate and actually come on here and have and I wanted to hold myself accountable for misspeaking when I was doing a live, because I don't want to misrepresent my journey or say anything that might not sound right or be right, because I did not have any intention to say someone put a comment that I was delusional when I said I was an ex-alcoholic. I misspoke because you are right. And when I saw that, I was just like, okay, they're in their feelings. Congratulations to your 13 years of recovery. A lot of people in recovery and just people in general, when you share about your experience, your struggle, and you say it in a certain way, they're like, they can judge you, which I get. I will always struggle with knowing that I will never be able to drink alcohol again. I am a overcomer. I am not an active alcoholic. I'm not an ex-alcoholic. I misspoke. So I just wanted to clarify that. And yes, I deleted your comment. It was just a trigger thing. And so I just want to say I'm not delusional. I know that I can never safely drink again. And I wanted to do some recovery content before I went to bed, and share a story of, that I shared earlier on my channel. And so I'm going to share a story, not my story, but a story that of a recording from an AA member. So again, to the person who commented that I am a delusional person, I am not delusional. I just misspoke. Salute, West Adams. So I'm going to share with you a story that I uploaded about a couple of years ago, because when I was in my, when I was listening to a lot of recovery online, I wanted to share it with others. And so this is probably going to be about 30 minutes of someone's story. And again, if you're just now joining me and you are, wondering, why is she live talking about overcomer of alcohol, 7 years sober? Congrats on all who overcome addiction. Someone was very upset that I said that I was an ex-alcoholic. I misspoke. I did not mean to say I was an ex-alcoholic. I misspoke. And I hold myself accountable for that. Okay. So I love you guys. And here's to overcoming all addictions. I used to run a group when I worked in mental health called All Addictions, and I was very proud of that group. Make sure you hit the like button. And we're just going to hear this young woman's story about how she overcame alcoholism. And I hope you enjoy it. If somebody's out there that is struggling with addiction, drugs, maybe this will help you out a little bit. It definitely helped me. Hold on one second. Definitely helped me. So, yeah, I'm addressing the message that I deleted. I apologize for deleting your message. You're absolutely right about I will always be a recovering alcoholic. You never become an ex-alcoholic. That road has sailed. I will never be able to drink safely again. Okay. So this is let's see, step one. Okay. Hopefully I didn't freeze up. I think I did freeze up a little bit. Here we go.
Have to walk with my head hanging down in shame, and that I could somehow be the kind of woman that I really always had wanted to be, and thought that it was hopeless, that I was hopeless, that was never going to be me. I'm one of those people who just lost hope real early and never thought that I was going to have any kind of a good life at all. And I certainly never dreamed that I would ever be invited to a place like this to talk to a group of people like you. I want to thank the committee, Norm and Doug and the committee, for having us back here. It's a privilege to be asked to come any place and share my story.
Right now, what you're about to hear is a woman named Gloria. She's going to share her story. And then also eventually I will reshare my story here on this channel. So yeah, I hope you enjoy this story. Those of you guys who are struggling with addiction, or if you don't really understand it.
Story to share my experience, strength, and hope, and what's been given to me in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. And that's why I'm here tonight, to share my story. I'm here to share with you the things that have been given to me in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. If you're new here tonight, I hope that you leave this conference with some hope that maybe someday you can live a better way of life. If you're here tonight, you already are living a better way of life. If you're here tonight and you wonder if the program of Alcoholics Anonymous works, look around this room and ask yourself, what kind of a power is it that brings a room full of people like this together? A room full of helpless, hopeless, alcoholic people are sitting in this room tonight, clean and smiling and well-dressed and well-behaved and sober and happy. And like the book says, happy, joyous, and free. That's what's in this room here tonight. And it's because of a power, something so powerful. And all we have to do is touch into it through the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. That's what's happened to me. 17 and a half years ago, I couldn't live in.
Hey, wow, that's so funny. I don't even remember when I recorded this video. So what I'm doing right now, I think this was over a year ago, I'm taking notes, and many of us in recovery, we take notes when we're listening to a story of how, you know, we can relate to it, and just pointers and things like that. So if you feel like that will help you, I encourage you to get a notebook and start taking notes as well. And it will really help you with your journaling.
Reality, I couldn't hardly get up out of a bed. I couldn't function in life at all. And I'm standing here before you tonight, able to walk up those stairs, able to get up here behind this podium, regardless of how scared I am, and talk to you about what's happened to me in this program. It's absolutely impossible. And I'm not confused about what brought me from where I was 17 and a half years ago to where I am today. It was the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. It was my God working through the people in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm one of those.
Thank you, Silver Moon. I really appreciate the congratulations.
Those who believe that I was born alcoholic. I know that I was sick a long time before I ever took a drink of alcohol. I was born into an alcoholic home. My father died of alcoholism when I was 6 years old, and my mother was an alcoholic, and she married another alcoholic not long after my father died. So I knew about drinking. I knew about the things that go on in an alcoholic home. What I didn't know was that the people that lived there were sick. I thought that they were bad. I thought that I was bad, that there was something wrong with me, that I was somehow partly responsible for the things that went on in my house. School was real painful for me. I compared my insides to their outsides, and naturally I came up the loser. It looked to me like all the other little girls in my school were perfect, and they were all pretty, and they all had the right clothes, and they came from the right kind of family, and they all were smart, and they did the right things. And it just didn't seem like I was ever going to be as good as they were. By the time I was 11 or 12 years old, I just sort of lost hope. I made a couple of decisions about that time. One of them was that if I couldn't be good, I was going to be bad. And that's the way that I lived my life until I came to this program. Another one was that I just decided to forget about trying to be like the other little girls, just to try to forget about ever being able to be accepted by them. And
I'll probably interact a little bit throughout this share. What I want many to look for that struggle, look for the similarities, not the differences, but the similarities. Everybody doesn't, they have, you know, different, a different journey, but there's a lot of similarities with people who struggle with alcoholism.
I just decided I'd hang around with the boys. And that's the way that I lived until I came to this program. I came to Alcoholics Anonymous hating women. And I know today, looking back on it, it was just myself that I hated. And I was afraid of you. And I thank God that today I've been given a love for the woman alcoholic, a love that really sustains me a lot of times. It gives me a lot of time, a purpose for living. And it's something that I never expected to be mine. I never expected that feeling to be mine and that kind of love for any woman to be mine. Being invited places to share my story is kind of an exciting thing. I do a lot of exciting things in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm fortunate to be a real active member of Alcoholics Anonymous. But my most favorite thing to do in this program is to just sit quietly and talk, share on a one-to-one basis with another woman alcoholic. I believe that part of the book that says, in God's hands, my dark past can be my greatest asset. Today, it all seems to make sense when I can share my past with a new woman who doesn't think that she's ever going to be able to hold her head up, who doesn't think that she's ever going to be able to function in life. And it just seems, it makes it all make sense when I can share what's happened to me in this program and the things that I've been given. The first time I drank was the first time that I got drunk. I was 13 years old, and it happened to be Christmas Eve. I was in a little cafe, and some boys came along that I knew. I was used to hanging out with a lot of these boys, but these were some that I didn't know very well. Anyway, they came and I went for a ride with them, and they started drinking beer, and I started drinking beer with them. I don't remember making a decision about this is good or bad, right or wrong. It just seemed perfectly natural for me to start drinking. I don't know how many I had that night before I began to experience a feeling that was to keep me in bondage for the next 16 years of my life. The big book says that alcoholics drink for the effect produced by alcohol. And the effect that alcohol had on me that night was this, it gave me this feeling of I don't care. I don't care if it's Christmas Eve. I don't care if my mother's getting beat up. I don't care if I'm bad and crazy and wild. I just don't care. And the next day I came to, and I was in a strange town in an abandoned car. I was by myself, and the effects of the alcohol had worn off, and I was more afraid and more ashamed and more guilty than I'd ever been in my life. And I was an alcoholic. I know I was an alcoholic from that very moment. I remember knowing someplace deep down inside me that day that I had found something that would allow me to be somebody other than who I thought I was. And from that day on, I became willing to pay any price to experience that feeling. From that day on, all I wanted to do was run the streets and find something to put inside me so that I didn't have to think or feel or care. And I took anything that came along right from the very beginning. I started running around with a crowd that was a lot older than I was. We hung out down on the Pike in Long Beach, and I was down there in a dance hall in the Lido Ballroom one night when we went out in the parking lot, and some people were drinking a lot of wine, and they were drinking
Well, I do think that there are some signs that Olivia could display that show signs that she could be an alcoholic. However, in recovery, the only person that could really say that they suffer from alcoholism is the person who they're dealing with it. A lot of people are in denial. A lot of people, they just want to drink to get drunk, and there are some questions actually, and I'll do another live that the program asks you to check off. There's like maybe 12 questions. And if you answer a couple of those questions, it's a good chance that you are an alcoholic. Yes, it can give false courage and numbness. You're absolutely right. And also, if you're getting to the point to where you're people are telling you about yourself or you don't remember what you've done, that is a sign of a blackout. Once you start blacking out, that's a good chance that you're on the road to becoming an alcoholic, or you already are an alcoholic. A lot of people, they are told about themselves. They don't know what they said the night before. They have to go back and look at lives to see how they acted, or reactions to see how they acted. So, and also, I just want to say there's not a real time of day that qualifies you to be an alcoholic. It's really what the drink makes you do and the compulsive to drink. Like if you, some people can have, a couple of shots and that's all they want to do, right? And they're good with that. But if you're a person who you're having a hard day and you're like, you know what, I'm going to drink 6 shots, or, you end up almost drinking the whole bottle, you can become an alcoholic. You definitely can. It can happen to anybody.
Some nose drops. And I drank those, and drugs was something I was never going to have anything to do with. And, nose drops didn't seem too exotic or dangerous. And so I drank them like the rest of the people were. And from that night on, drugs and alcohol just went hand in hand for me. I was never long without one or the other or both. And like I say, I just took anything that came along. It just didn't matter. By the time I was 15 years old, I ran away from home a lot. I went to juvenile hall a lot. I went to jail a lot. I got in a lot of trouble. I very seldom ever went to school. I left that little Christian school I'd been going to all my life and enrolled in public school. And I just ran the streets. And I had a boyfriend who was a longshoreman, and he lived over in Wilmington, not too far.
Oh, the similarities. I'm going to talk about my similarities with Gloria. I was a teenage drinker. I didn't go to jail. I didn't go to juvie. I didn't do drugs. I mean, well, drugs is weed. I smoked weed. But I ran the streets and I liked to drink when I was a teenager, but I just didn't do anything else but that. But that's why I'm saying I'm looking at the similarities, not the differences.
Far from where I lived. And he used to take me to all those waterfront bars over there, and those were the kinds of places that I felt most comfortable, down on the docks around all those people. It seemed like what I was didn't show so badly. I started out drinking where I've heard a lot of people in AA say they ended up drinking, and that's the way it had to be for me. I just felt more comfortable in those places. When I was 15 years old, I got a brilliant idea. I thought, I know how I can get free. I hated my stepfather, and I was ashamed of my mother. I hated where we lived and all the things that went on there. I hated anybody telling me what to do, and especially my stepfather. And so I thought I needed to be free. I thought, I'll just get married and I'll be free. Little did I know. I married an older man. He was 19 and I was 15. And we were going to live happily ever after. The trouble was, I married this longshoreman, and as soon as we got married, he wanted me to stay home and be Betty Crocker. And he would keep going out to all these bars, having all this fun. I didn't like that idea, but I didn't think I had any choice in the matter. So
Now I'm going to go back to the similarities I have with Gloria. When I met my second husband, before I married him, I was very independent, had a wonderful career. But when we got married, he wanted me to stay at home. He wanted me to stay at home, and I did not know how to deal with that shift of being so independent and staying at home. I did not like that. So KP, it gave you more a feeling of young, careless, wild, and free, and ended up down the whole. Yes, it did. It was gradual. It really didn't happen. Let's listen to Gloria's gradual downfall to rock bottom, and I'll also share with you my gradual downfall to rock bottom. It started when I was 15, being introduced to it, had fun in my teens and 20s, had a couple of issues, a couple of stories I could tell, but it didn't really get dangerous for me until I was in my 30s. And now in my 40s, I have not drank alcohol. I haven't had a drink since I was in my 30s. Since I was 37 years old, that was my last drink of alcohol. And hopefully I will never have a drink. And like the person who said that I was delusional, you're absolutely right. We're all one step away from a relapse. We have to continue to do the work. I'm so regretful. I regret that I deleted your comment, but I do remember, and that's why it's so good to admit your wrongdoings. And that was a wrongdoing. I shouldn't have deleted that comment. But I'm addressing it now, and I'm grateful for that comment because it made me realize how I needed to hold accountability and get on here, get on my platform, and let you know that I am not an ex alcoholic. I'm a recovering overcomer of alcoholism. And I have to continuously put work into myself because if I slip up, I could actually go back to where I was at. And I don't want to do that. So that's why. And a lot of people don't like to hear that. But the statistics show people like me that can happen if you don't stay with the herd, if you're not honest with yourself. And so that's why I'm doing this right now.
Tried to do what he wanted me to do. I tried to stay home and do the things that I assumed women did in the home. I didn't really know. I didn't really have any real idea of what goes on in normal homes. And I just couldn't make it. I was full of fear. By this time, I was 16 years old, and I was scared to death all the time when I wasn't under the influence of something. I can remember 16 years old, scared to go out to the market in the afternoon, afraid to walk down the street because I always thought a car was going to come up on the sidewalk and hit me. I was just scared to death when I didn't have anything inside me. And when I was drinking, I could run the streets of Wilmington and San Pedro, all those docks, and anywhere. It just didn't matter where it was, in and out of bars, all by myself all night long. And I just wasn't afraid. I didn't care about anything. Once I take a drink of alcohol, I'm out of control.
So what alcoholism looks like, she's explaining the compulsion to just always wanting to have something to alter your reality. And it might look different on everybody. It might look like, hey, you might get the compulsion when you are having a bad day and you just want to numb out. You might have a compulsion because you have rejection, a bad breakup, you didn't get that job. Somebody looked at you funny. You didn't pass an exam. Many different reasons.
I've never been one of those kind of people who just drinks to be the life of the party. I've never been one of those people that just drinks to function because I never function very well. Once I take a drink, anything that comes into my head is what I do. And I always get in a lot of trouble. I don't understand being able to say, well, I'm not going to drive a car tonight because I might get a 502. I don't understand being able to say, I'm not going
Yeah, Silver Moon. I do think that it did happen to a lot of the teens in the 80s and 90s, but every generation, the baby boomers, the Generation X, the Ys and the Zs, right now, I think they're what, Y and Zs now, they're dealing with fentanyl overdose. Okay. So I think that there's a generation, a struggle for every generation. We are definitely dealing with the fentanyl um, epidemic or please correct me if I'm wrong. It's a yeah, I can't find the words. It's not a pandemic, but it's an epidemic. Hold on, I'm going to find the right wording and I'm going to tell you. So let's just listen to this and I'm going to get the right wording and I'm going to get right back to you on that. Okay.
Going to go out of the house tonight because I might get in trouble. I used to wish to God that I could stay in the house, but I couldn't. I'm a runner, and I just, when I drink, I run. I stayed married to this man for close to 3 years, and nothing much happened except I just got 3 years sicker. And towards the end of the marriage, I had a son, and one day I just picked him up and walked out, and I didn't look back. I didn't give it a thought as to what I was doing to my husband or what I was doing to my son, least of all what I was doing to myself. And I went back to my mother's house. By this time, it seemed better to.
Okay. Epidemic. Okay, yes, I was right. It's an epidemic, okay? The fentanyl epidemic is a national security concern, a public safety, okay? A public safety issue, a serious public health emergency. According to the United States Drug Enforcement Administration, the highest amounts of fentanyl came into the United States from China through Mexico and Canada. So it's an opiate epidemic. And it did actually start in the late 90s and it increased in prescription medication in the US that was widespread misuse of both prescription and non-prescription opiates. Because even back in the day, like there was, I mean, and today there's synthetic opiates as well that are very dangerous. So, yes, I feel like there was the cocaine, crack in the 80s, 90s, a lot of drinking, a lot of heroin, a lot of that was going on. But right now we are currently battling fentanyl. It's in everything.
To be there than where I'd been. And I was there one night and drinking by myself, and I got thinking about one of these old friends of mine, one of these guys I'd known since I was 11 years old. I went over to see him, and he was glad to see me, and I was glad to see him. And we went out that night, and we started seeing each other every night after that. And we really had a good time together. We'd always been friends, good friends. And he seemed to like me just the way that I was. He didn't want to try to tell me not to drink so much or don't do this, don't do that. He just liked me just the way I was, and it was good to be with him.
I agree with you. You know, we used to have our sidekicks and when I was when I was a teenager, we used to if you didn't have a sidekick, you better know how to give some type of code with numbers because that's what we were working with back then. Um yeah, back then cigarettes were like 2 for $5, $2.50. And now cigarettes, thank God I don't smoke. They're 15, almost $15 here in California. They're like 11, $12. So expensive. And don't get me started with these e-cigarettes. I put down my cigarette. I don't even when I do my parodies, I will no longer be using an e-cigarette. I might have to find if they even have it, one of those old candy gum cigarettes. I don't even think they sell those anymore because I don't vape anymore and I feel so much better. Vaping is dangerous.
Him. And we thought that we had it made because we'd both been married before. Neither one of us ever wanted to be married again, and so we thought we can just go out and have fun. We both liked doing the same thing, which was absolutely nothing, um, except riding around in his car drinking. Anyway, we'd been seeing each other about 5 months, and we decided to get married. And so he hawked his fishing pole for money for a marriage license, and I got an annulment because I'd been married in Mexico, and we got married. And he tried to work at first, and I'd cry and beg him to stay home. I was 19 years old by this time, and I was afraid to be by myself. I couldn't stand being by myself, alone with my thoughts, for very long a time. And so I'd want him around all the time. As long as he was around and I had something to drink, I was fine. So I'd beg him to stay home, and he'd want to be nice and stay home with me. And pretty soon he got used to the idea, and he never did go to work. Finding a job was always the last.
Ebony, thank you for joining me. If you're just now joining me, I'm just going to reiterate why I'm here right now. On one of my shorts, someone left a message that I was delusional. I misspoke and said that I was an ex-alcoholic, which is not true. I'm an overcomer of alcoholism. I will never not be a recovering alcoholic. And you never become an ex of anything when it comes to addiction or alcoholism. So I just wanted to hold accountability and say that I misspoke. I was wrong. And I also was wrong for deleting the person's comment. I apologize for doing that. So we're listening to Gloria, and I am doing a reaction on what the similarities are with her and I. And hopefully, if there's people out there that also struggle, they can find the more similarities than the differences. So I love you. Glad that you're here. Hope you're doing well, sis.
Resort in our house. When all the other things wore out, he would get a job for a short period of time, long enough to get a back injury so that he could collect disability, or maybe work up an unemployment claim so he could collect an unemployment check for a while. Sometimes we lived on welfare. Sometimes we hustled my family for money, or anybody else who was close by. He'd rob and steal. We just did whatever we had to do.
I just have to say congratulations to you, Moon, for not vaping anymore. It's not easy. I stopped smoking cigarettes in my 20s, and then vaping came out, and I thought it was like the coolest thing. I'm like, "Oh, I'm going to still be able to be an athlete. I'm going to still be able to run." But vaping actually compromised my respiratory system more than cigarettes did, more than flower marijuana. And I even thought, oh, well, maybe I can start vaping CBD, any form of vape, any foreign body, a form of anything that you're putting in your body, unless you have like a nebulizer treatment that opens up your bronchial airway, that you're hurting yourself. You're giving yourself poison. So I know some people think, oh, if it's not nicotine, it's synthetic nicotine. Vaping is so bad. I was short breathed. At first, I blamed it on COVID. I was like, oh, it's because of COVID. No, honey, it's because of vaping. Vaping is not good for you. I hope and pray that our kids out there that are experimenting with vaping stop doing it, because there's not long enough studies to know how much damage it's actually going to do. I might still suffer from how much I vaped. So congratulations for putting down that vape stick. I know I've tried it several times, and this is probably like my second time around. I think I have a little over 80 days of that, and I feel so much better. Breath of fresh air, seriously.
To get by, short of work. We worked harder at not working than most people work at working. We began to have children. We had a son, and then we had a daughter. So now I've got 3 children, and life became a real hell for me and everyone concerned. I never ever wanted to raise my children the way that I had been raised. And they were living in a home probably a lot worse in a lot of ways than the one I'd been raised in. And there was never enough money for alcohol and for drugs and for the things that these children needed. And so naturally, they came last. And anything that, anytime that it got real bad and everything just ran out, all the money ran out, well, I would just leave them with my mother-in-law and run. And that's just the way it was. That was my pattern. And my kids spent most of their early lives with their grandmother. My oldest son moved back with his father when he was about 9 years old because he hated being with me so much. Eventually, my husband and I left town on a Greyhound bus, and we ended up riding around California and Oregon on Greyhound buses and staying in rescue missions and Salvation Armies, and that's the way it was. And I can tell you that I felt much more comfortable living around on those skid rows than I ever felt in my home.
So it looks like I was having technical difficulties there. So let me just speed it up a little bit. Hopefully, there is no more technical difficulties. And if so, I'll come back and, but I'm not having technical difficulties on my end, just on the video that I'm viewing right now. So let's see.
Me to oblivion anymore. It didn't turn off the shame and the guilt and the fear. And one day I came to and I was yellow and I knew I had hepatitis.
Wow.
I'd had it twice before, and the doctors told me that if I ever got it again, I'd die. And I laid on a dirty, filthy bed in this apartment and just thinking I was going to die.
Wow. So she said she had hepatitis. Can't relate with that, but for those of you guys don't know what hepatitis is, there's different um there's different types of hepatitis. There's hepatitis A, there's hepatitis B, and then there's hepatitis A, B, and then there's also hepatitis C. Hepatitis C is not curable at all. But you can get vaccinated from the other two hepatitis, but like this is interesting. I wonder what's happening here.
And when I heard people out in the other room, I didn't show my face. And there I stayed for how long? I don't know how long I was over there in that place. I don't know what happened while I was over there. That's just the way that it was. After I got sober, I had to pick out a sobriety date for myself because I didn't know
She said she was sleeping in like dirty places, on dirty beds. That's the last thing I heard her say, that she said she caught it twice. You can catch it from bodily fluids. You can catch it from food. Yeah, there's many ways you can catch it, but I heard her say that she was sleeping on dirty beds.
the exact date that I took my last drink. And when I was in a recovery house, people started asking me what my sobriety date was, and I had to figure one out with my sponsor. And the way I was able to figure it out was that I remembered an experience that I'd had over there in that apartment. One day I heard voices out in the other room, and I realized they were singing happy birthday to my son. And I remembered that I was too sick to get up off the bed and go out and wish my own child a happy birthday. And that's the kind of humiliation, and that's the kind of shame that keeps me actively involved in this program. Like I say, I don't ever want to have to go back out on the streets and live the way that I was living. And this man, my first husband, told me that he'd send me up to Harbor General Hospital in a cab, and then that would be all he was going to do for me. And so I found myself riding up to a county hospital alone to die. And my mother had died in that hospital a few years before that time of alcoholism. And I remember that day, and I remember this day, what it was like for a woman dying in that hospital of our disease. I happened to be sober at the time, and she was in there for about 3 weeks, and I spent almost all the time up there with her. And I remember how afraid she was and how she'd lose consciousness and cry out and ask me if she was going to die. And I didn't know what was going to happen to her. And I was as scared as she was. And I knew that day driving up there in that cab that was experience. I just knew I was going in that hospital to die. I stood in the waiting room of Harbor General Hospital, and I had on a pair of black Levi's that I'd been wearing for a couple of months, and a man's shirt, and I was bright yellow, and I was skin and bones. I was 29 years old, and as far as I knew, my life was over. And they put me in a room and started examining me, and they did a biopsy on my liver. And the doctor came and told me that my liver was so badly damaged that I wouldn't live over 3 years if I kept on going the way I was going. And I wouldn't live over 5 even if I didn't drink any alcohol again. And so I laid awake that night thinking about dying, and I always thought that's what I wanted. I always thought I wanted out. And I realize now that was just some more self-pity. I was always feeling sorry for myself.
Right now, what Gloria is explaining is her bottom. Everybody has a different bottom. My bottom was after I almost died in 2017. I picked up a drink 60 days right after that accident. And oh yeah, what's up, hon? Hold on, let me mute myself.
That night, I remembered what my grandmother told me happens to people like me when they die. And I got absolutely terrified. I got absolutely desperate to stay alive, not for any honorable reason, but just simply because I was afraid to die. And I did that night what I believe every human being on this earth will do when there's no place else to turn. I believe that we will go to our Creator. And that's what I did that night. I just said a real short, simple prayer, and that was, just let me please just stay alive.
So the similarity that I can relate to with Gloria, many people that struggle with this, but I'm just going to speak for myself. There came a time in my drinking to where it was just not fun anymore. And I knew that I was so dependent on it, but I wanted to stop. And I asked God to save me because I did not want to die like that. Because if you're lucky and you're blessed, if you come to a point in your addiction of whatever you are addicted to, when you actually really have that talk with God to save you and to bring you to a point of, of help to you want to get out of that bottom and you want to live. That's how you know you want to live, when you have that talk with God to keep you going, to lift you up.
It had been a long time since I wanted anything to do with God, a long time. I had a God that I was scared to death of.
Yeah, I like this part. It does remind me of when I had my real serious talk with God. I thought I really knew God, but I didn't have a relationship with God until I hit my rock bottom in this disease, because it came to a point to where physically I knew I was sick. Physically, emotionally, spiritually, and mentally. And it terrified me to stop drinking, and it also terrified me to continue drinking, because I knew that my body could not handle the amounts and the duration of what I was consuming.
That I had acquired somewhere in my childhood. I don't know. I don't know how. I doubt if anybody told me that God hated me. I doubt if anybody taught me that anything but that God loved me, but I didn't hear it that way. I hated myself so badly, I guess I just must have believed that he hated me too. And I just thought, I won't ask him for anything, and I won't get his attention on me, and we'll be fine. I had an absolutely childish fear of God. But that night, it didn't seem to matter. I was desperate, and I just wanted to keep on breathing. And that night, I had what I believe to have been a spiritual experience. I believe that it was the first of many spiritual experiences. I believe that we are having spiritual experiences more often than we realize. Every time I see a little bit of truth about myself and about the world around me, I believe that's a spiritual experience for me. This night was the first, and it wasn't the result of the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. It was just the result of a very loving God showing me a little bit of truth about myself. The next day, the doctor came into my room, and he had a big smile on his face, and he said, "Well, you're not going to die." He said, "We've made a mistake. That shows you how much we know about the human liver. Ha, ha, ha." And he was all cheerful and happy. I thought, God, I've spent my night reforming, and this guy's made a mistake. Today, I know it wasn't a mistake. I know that my God doesn't make mistakes. I think that it was just his hand pushing me a little closer to a place where I could surrender to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous when it came my way. And that's exactly what happened. Alcoholics Anonymous came to me in the hospital. I stayed in that hospital for a while longer, and then they moved me to Long Beach to another hospital. And it was there that I started going to AA meetings. I had seen AA meetings long before that. My mother tried to go to Alcoholics Anonymous when I was just a little girl. And of course, I didn't know what was here. I just remembered that it was kind of a happy place to be, and I used to be glad that we were going there that night. And I really thought he needed it. It wasn't for me, but he needed it. Of course, I didn't hear anything then. But this guy that he started coming around to my room and telling me about the AA meetings that they had in that hospital. And I don't know to this day how he got started coming around to my room, and he doesn't know either. The last time I saw him, I asked him what made him start coming to talk to me about AA, and he couldn't remember either. He doesn't stay sober.
Hey, Roxy. I hope you're having a good night. I know it is. Let's see. 10, 11. So 1 o'clock in the morning where you are. Hope you're having a good night or good morning.
All the time, and I don't know where he is. I haven't seen him for a few years, but he was an angel in my life. I happen to have a thing for angels, and I was told one time on a retreat that angels are messengers of God, and I believe that this guy carried God's message to me, and I believe that he was just the first of many angels in this program who've come to me and carried God's message. He was a new member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and you know how they are. They just want to save the world. And he was out to save me. I thought he was a pest at first, and I just tried to get rid of him, and he just kept coming back and telling me he'd read all these cards and letters that people were sending him. He was a patient in the hospital too. And anyway, finally one night, just to shut him up, I went to a meeting with him. And I sat around a table full of people much like yourselves. And I don't remember what was said that night, but I do remember the way that it felt. It felt safe and warm and gentle and loving. And I didn't have those labels to put on it that night, but I know that that's what it was now. I just knew that it felt good. And I kept going back to those meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous for exactly the same reason that I kept going back to alcohol, because I liked the way that it felt. And eventually I began to hear some things in those meetings. They had 2 a week in that hospital. And I began to hear some things that I believe allowed me to become a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. One of them being,
I like what she said. She kept going because she liked how it made her feel, just like she liked how alcohol made her feel. After this testimony is done, I'm going to actually go to an online meeting that's 24 hours because I like the way it makes me feel. Even at 5.5 years, there's some times where I could feel as though I'm not putting my sobriety first, whether it be, any aspect of my life.
Wow. So I didn't even really realize that this was 2 years ago when I made this video. I'm 7 years sober now. And I really like seeing how it was, even if it was a couple of years ago, because sometimes I need a reminder that I still need to continue to make this um, sobriety journey a priority in my life because I get so busy. I got so busy with school because I graduated 2 years ago and I got my scrubs on. That's what I used to wear to school. And I get so caught up with school, but I was always doing my recovery meetings. And then I got a job and then I got another job. And there's just so much going on. I have kids in high school and I just start kind of just living life. And it's really good to have these reminders that I need to keep doing the work to stay successful.
If I'm not putting it first, I'm not going to be good for myself or anyone else. So that's why I keep going to meetings. I keep journaling. I make sure that stay away from negative thoughts because anybody could slip up.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody told me that I was not bad, that I was sick. And they said that Alcoholics Anonymous is not a place where bad people come to get good. It's a place where sick people come to get well. And they told me that I could get well if I wanted to. They told me I could get well if I do the things that were outlined in the book Alcoholics Anonymous. They told me that Alcoholics Anonymous is not a place for people who need it. It's a place for people who want it.
That's
and
right.
All I had to do was want it. And eventually, at some time during that stay in that hospital, I developed a desire to stay sober. I don't know when that happened either. I just know that when it got time for me to leave, I didn't want to go. And it turned out the reason I didn't want to go was that I knew I'd go out there and drink and do the things that I'd been doing. And I realized I didn't want to do that anymore. I had received the gift. I had received this desire for sobriety. And God had sent all these people, just exactly the right people to come and bring this program to me. And he took me to just the right places then, and he does right now. He brings just the right people into my life. He takes me to just the right places. I'm
Just wanted to commentate on that. I really agree with Gloria when she said just the right people. And I also want to counter that with God also takes people out of your life that should not be in your life that will hinder your growth, that can be a burden to your success in your journey. So just as though God can put people in your life, thank God for taking people out of your life. People that continue to drink excessively, that have no regard or respect for your recovery or themselves. And I've had many of those taken out of my life. And I'm so grateful for God for that. No regrets.
just everywhere that I'm supposed to be. And I believe that more and more and more in my life. I believe that everybody in this room is going to run into just the right people and hear just the right things and go to just the right places if they practice the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. The man who was secretary of one of the meetings told me about a woman's recovery house, and I'd never heard of such a thing. He told me it was where a bunch of women lived, and they went to AA meetings and just kind of lived in this house until they got better. And I know that I was surrendered because I was willing to go live in a house full of women. I moved in to that house, much to my surprise. I first of all had to interview with the house mother, and he told me we'd go over there and I'd have to have an interview with her. And of course, I knew that she was going to start asking me a bunch of questions and I wouldn't have the right answers. And I just assumed that she wouldn't let me move in there with all those nice girls. I was very pleasantly surprised because I got there and I sat across the room from this lady who just smiled all the time. And she said, "Do you want to come and move in with us, honey?" And I said, "Yes, I do." And she said, "Okay, you can move in tomorrow." Just like that. Nobody asked me how much money I had or where I'd been or where I was going. Nobody asked me what my morals were. Nothing. I didn't have to fill out anything, nothing. I just moved into that house, and the women there began to love me well. I began to see the program of Alcoholics Anonymous in action. I began to see people living the things that I'd heard them talking about in these AA meetings in the hospital. I remember a lot of days in that house, and I remember a lot of experiences in that house. And when I look back on them now, they seem so amazingly simple. The little things that meant so much to me, just teeny little things. It seems now that they were so simple and so small, but at the time, they were the things that lit my spirit up and gave me hope.
Oh, I love that. And on that note, I agree with Gloria. Sharing how successful recovery has changed my life lights my spirit up, and I hope it lights yours up too. Whether you are an overeater, whatever you are dealing with in your addiction. Um, spring break is over for my kids, and it is past 10 o'clock. Although I have teenagers, I have to definitely redirect them and make sure that they have air in those tires, they have their clothes set out, and they are ready to go in the morning. So I'm going to have to shut this live down and do my mommy duties and make sure that they're ready for the next day. I thank you all for joining me for this recovery portion or part of my channel. I'm going to be doing more of this. I thank that commenter, the one that I deleted your comment and you said I was delusional. I thank you for that because it reminded me that I need to continue to do this type of content, my passion, recovery. And yeah, I thank God for you guys. So I will see you in the next video. I will end this with the 9th step promises from AA, and I have them memorized in my head. And this can go to anyone that's dealing with a struggle in your life. And I love how it starts off by saying, if you're painstaken about this phase of your development, you'll be amazed before you're halfway through. You'll know a newfound freedom and a new happiness. You will not regret the past, nor wish to shut the door on it. You will understand the word serenity, and you will know peace. No matter how far down the scale you've gone, you will see how your experience can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. You will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in your fellows. Self-seeking will slip away, and your whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and economic insecurity will leave you. You will intuitively handle situations which used to baffle you. You'll suddenly realize that God is doing for you what you cannot do for yourselves. Are these extravagant promises? We think not. They're being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. They will always materialize if you work for them. God bless you. Love you. God, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Love you. See you later. Goodbye.